It's April 23rd, 2015. So I was explaining that, so they had my parents involved, and sometimes it looked like they were actually maybe involved in a participatory way, but, of course there are twins of them, and so I wasn't always sure which one of them was there in the situation, and which was really participating or was forced to act, because the government did force them to act sometimes, just as I was being forced to act and pretend that nobody was harming me at all. And then I'd have to go back to the house with my mom and dad, and maybe they were like directly involved in it. And then after being around all these people at a barbecue, for example, who were involved in this kind of thing against me, then I would go with my mom and dad, and couldn't go anywhere or tell anyone about what had happened. And I also saw some things happen to my parents. I mean, I can speak for myself as to what kinds of actual torture and rape occurred to me, because I know what happened. I know that I was really getting raped. I know when there was like someone penetrating me with some kind of an object or doing something like that. As to my parents, I actually witnessed many instances of both of them being raped. However, I can't speak to the fact of, because I'm not them, I don't know for sure if they were acting, like if sometimes someone wanted one of them to be acting that out in front of me as if it was real, or if it was really truly happening. Because sometimes it just seemed really like it was real. Other times I was in too much of a state of shock. Everything seemed like kind of surreal. And so there were many times I just kind of thought everything was an act. I didn't think it was real. I didn't believe that what I was seeing was actually serious, even though, yes, it happened to me and it was serious and I knew that. For some reason, I could sometimes see it happening to someone else, and it was more like a state of disbelief, and I just thinking that it's not possible, like that it was acting, because the CIA mixed and military, they mixed in a lot of acting at different times with what they were doing in reality. So it's very possible that I would never doubt it if my parents said that, and they say that all of this isn't true, but the thing is I did witness them being raped many times. And if they were actually being raped, what I saw, and I did see guns held to their head, and them being threatened and stuff, and I saw them being dragged off in handcuffs a few times, like they were never jailed on any charges or at all. They were just like taken off like hostages somewhere. Like some group of government people would, who was shuffling them around, would sometimes take them off or hold them in a grip and keep them from going somewhere, that kind of thing. And a couple of times I think they drugged them. They didn't drug them that much because the government, I know, has been using them for psychic abilities for a very long time. And I don't think they wanted anything to tamper with that. But I have seen, definitely, I also saw cuts and acid burns and really strange marks of injury, external injuries that were not internal things, like external forms of harm that occurred to their bodies. I saw that on a regular basis with both my mom and dad. So I would never, they lie. Well, they say that these things never happen. But the thing is if it's true that what I witnessed was actually really happening to them, then they had as much incentive and motive to lie or else get tortured as I did, and I have had. Sometimes it seemed to me a lot more like they were working with the government and I was the one that just wasn't. But like I said, I can't speak for them because I don't know for sure. I don't know for sure, like, the extent of how much they were raped, if they were raped, like how bad it was and how often. I can just say that it definitely was happening to me. And I definitely did witness on many, many, many occasions. What appeared to be that happening to them, however, from kind of an outsider perspective, it didn't really seem real to me for some reason for a very, most of the time. Like, I just, for some reason, didn't think it was possibly real. I wasn't even, you know, I never, like, really saw something, I don't know, I just kind of, I guess I wondered if it was acting. They did, the government mixed up so many things because, you know, they had me acting like a lawyer. They had me acting out all these different scenarios, which were actually real, had real people, real environments that you would work in, and that kind of thing. And, you know, then even forcing me to pretend like I wasn't getting raped in a truck, and then pretending like everyone's my friend and like nothing ever happened, or else getting seriously tortured and starved and handcuffed and chained again. So, you know, it's definitely possible that someone in the government was ordering, you know, like, say, a Bob or a Dixie saying, okay, you have to participate in this gang rape, and you better make it look like you really want to do it, or else we're going to do it 10 times worse. And then maybe they did an example of how they'd make it 10 times worse and showed them. I mean, because, and that's in addition to, like, what they did to them physically themselves, which I may have seen. There were other times that I know they were testing me, supposedly, and then they let a Bob or Dixie out, and they seemed to be infuriated, and they let them, like, go after me. So that's why sometimes it seemed like they were working with the government, like, voluntarily, but then again, even that could have just been an act, because what the government was doing, they did a lot of really, really bad things. And I know that many of the injuries that I saw that were physical injuries on my parents were not fake. So, so anyway, I would get isolated into a situation where then, for example, then maybe if I was with my parents at the house after an instance of getting gang raped in a truck, if I dared try to bring it up after the fact, then I was in trouble for, I could get in trouble for bringing it up, and people would say it never happened, and you don't know what you're talking about, and sounding crazy again. And if I dared try to continue the conversation and I didn't forget about it and just pretend like everything was normal and we were all happy and nothing bad was ever happening to anyone, if I didn't do that, then I was liable to have that happen to me again. And at one point they had a Bob Jr., one of them at least, in the truck participating with some of it, and they had him saying things like about Katie Middleton again. I mean, they kept using Katie Middleton. Like, I mean, either they really seriously had some kind of a rage about trying to defend her for something when she was just this kid, when the only thing that I ever did was say a couple of words here and there that about, like, I didn't like her, or, you know, just being a bratty kid, as kids can be, maybe making some comment like, you know, oh, she'll be a slut, or she is a slut, something like that. And because that's basically like learned things that I had heard about people say about me. And so that was, of course, like my way to retaliate and insult someone, because I heard those insults directed towards me plenty of times. So, but they would do things like then increase how many times they gang raped me in his semi-truck. And so there were many individuals connected to this government, but then, you know, like sometimes they'd do something, they'd make a Bob Jr. be part of it, and then it looked like he was getting jumped himself. Another time, one time, I was being forced to go into a truck, and he was acting really upset, and like he was crying, and didn't want me to go, but then I was getting jumped. So there were different times that he sort of looked upset, and then there were a couple of times he acted like, or one of them acted like he was mad at me. And then where did they get these like semi-trucks? Well, a lot of these, there were a lot of government individuals who had people working in the trucking business. And several that were connected to child porn and trafficking for government, for CIA stuff. They had trucks that they used for work, and some of them had kind of slightly personal contract trucking kinds of things. And others had jobs where they had to sometimes rent a truck. So, for example, like some of these movie stars and celebrities who were stealing things from me, my songs, you know, some of them sometimes had big trailers that they would live in. And other times there would be like an entire grip truck, like a big truck that had all of the grips materials, you know, like for setting up a stage, doing things on location. And they'd have seriously like a semi-truck type of a deal. Musicians also used those trucks. And then there were regular workers such as like Bundy, or not Bundy, this other guy who was the painter.